we just had a new book come out last night. I'm sure you saw I put it on the website.
I've already started reading it.
So is it any good?
Yes. And
good.
Here you're going back to the early years of my career. I mean, when we were power football, and the 3 years that we went to the state championship, and we probably threw 15-20% of the time. The rest of the time we were running at you. We were running ISO, we were running off tackle power, we were running toss. We got into that stuff and we were good at it. And you're right, when you see that stuff and it's done well, and the various techniques that it's great stuff. So and what I've seen with your evolution is that, you started off with the basic 1.0, and you were doing those. As you've gone along over the years, you figured out you can get back to that running game and still do the same stuff we're doing. And you can read it out, and it's great stuff. Because back in the old days, if we called a play and if the defense adjusted correctly, just by happenstance, we were dead in the water. We ran the play, and then we started learning to call two plays, and but it just, the things that you're teaching in that book give you a chance to call a power play. And if the power play is there, run it. Great. If the power play is not there and you start counting that box and it's overloaded, you've got options that you can do on the outside that would have, I wish I had your brain a long time ago. I don't know why.
Well, that's very nice. Yeah, it's funny to think about how cyclical the game really is, right? It's when I first started coaching, and I'm obviously, I haven't been doing it as long as you have, but when I first started coaching, the guy that taught me to coach, we were in the wing tee and a little bit in the eye. And I'll never forget it. He told me, he said, "Hey, I want you to take over our sophomore team." And I said, "Well, coach, I understand the eye better than I understand the wing tee." And he said, "Well, here's what I'm going to do." He said, "You go down there and you put them in the I formation, you run wing tee plays." And he said, "If you're not smart enough to figure that out, then you shouldn't be a football coach." And I was like, "Oh my God, this isn't going to end well. I'm not this smart." I was, I think I was 20 years old. I was still in college. And we went down there, and I'll never forget it. First game, we got our absolute tails whipped. I mean, we got the piss beat out of us. And I was like, I better shrink this down and do some things better. And we ended up, I don't remember what our final record was, but I remember we won the league, right? They gave you a little, and I probably lost this, or they gave you a little certificate for winning the JV, the sophomore league. It was back in Central Illinois. And I think it was at that point that I was like, holy cow. It doesn't really matter whether you got big, tall, or massive, strong players. You got to figure it out, right? As a coach, you got to figure it out, and you got to take what they're good at, and you got to accentuate their positives and minimize their deficiencies. And it's really funny, because I just told a coach that the other day, was kind of struggling. And I said, don't overemphasize what your job really is. Your job is to get young men and hide their weaknesses as much as you possibly can and accentuate their strengths, because they're human beings. We all got weaknesses. And I said, usually, the most talented team wins a lot. We all know that. But there's an awful lot. And that's what I love about football, right? In football, not necessarily is the most talented team going to win every Friday night. Sometimes the team that is playing together, using good technique, using a sound system, is going to pull off a win. And I just think that chess match is so fun intellectually.
It's called a team sport for a reason, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't have all 11 of them on the same page, you can have an awful lot of good looking kids over there and still not win. Yeah. So you better know what you're doing. And I one of the things that's changed, just this kind of off the cuff, but you see a lot of these programs now, and I'm a big Kansas State fan here in the middle of Wichita, Kansas.
Coach, look at it. I got a Kansas State
Wildcat. You do have one.
Look at that.
Oh, that's perfect. Great. Well, I wish I was closer to my stuff. Anyway, the family, that's all becoming very, very important to these teams right now. They've figured out that you've got to have kids that blend together. Doesn't matter what color they are, doesn't matter what religion it just doesn't matter. But if they're all together and they can learn to do things as a unit, it makes a big difference. Well, I had here in Kansas, I had a great coach, a great coach. His name was Chuck Porter. And I love the man to this day. I still see him. He's not doing real well, and I keep praying for him. But one of the things he did when we first came into an inner city school, and it wasn't even football related, it was on Thursday nights, he instituted a team meal. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of places do that, but you know what? He said, we're not going to do it at school. We're going to have parents volunteer their homes, and, you know, we'll do it in their backyards. It doesn't matter where we do, but go to their homes, and we'll do it in a family setting. Well, you know, we had these nice little rich kids that had never been up in some places that they'd never imagined.
Yeah.
And when they sat down and we broke bread together and we sat there and we were a team, as the years passed, that made such a big difference, because our kids were able to see how each other, how they grew up, how they lived, what their parents were like. You know, we really started to become a family. And that's when we went to 3 state championships in a row. It made a big difference to us. It wasn't X's and O's on the paper. It's how the kids held it together.
I love that you said that, Coach, because it's, you know, we were very fortunate. You and I've talked about this. We were able to play in our first state championship game 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've told several people since then, that team had absolutely no business being there. You know, I'm a man of faith. So I tell people God had a whole lot more to do with it than coaching and talent did, but we had no business being there. So when we lost in the state championship game, everybody was all sad and everything. And to be quite honest with you, I was kind of like, hey, we should have never been here. We should have got beat in the first round. So it was all icing on the cake. But you know, what's really truthful about that, those kids played so hard for one another. And they didn't, you know, I got these Coach of the Year awards and all that, and that's great, right? That's a great email bump, whatever. But the kids played for one another so hard. They were so committed to one another. And, you know, the X's and O's is fun. And that's what I tell people. I'm like, once you get kids to buy into that level, you can run any offense or defense you want. It's just literally scribbling fun stuff on a piece of paper, which is stuff we like to do. But it's so much more about the people. And I applaud you and I thank you for doing this for 40 plus years. And, you know, I've told you, I think you're a saint for doing it. Well, you might be an idiot, Coach, because you also been the good coach.
I told you, you're going to get me divorced. Because
that's so funny.
The first, I have to say this to you, the first night I was an S2A member, I would, you know, you said go through the dashboard and look at it. So I started going. I sat here. I don't even remember what time I started in the evening. It was after we had eaten dinner, and I came down here and turned it on. And, well, at about 2 o'clock in the morning, I finally shut it off because I figured
you're gonna get in all kinds of trouble, bro.
Oh yeah. So it's great stuff. It's easy to, you know, like I said, I'm not a computer guy, but I've figured out how to kind of manipulate myself through the dashboard, looking at all the different stuff. And then, you know, it's fun. I love football, and it's a way an old guy can keep connected to the game. It's awesome. You know, and this is one thing. What happened when you were a player and you ended up playing your last game? You know, you thought, well, it's football, a great time, but I'm done. Mm-hmm. Well, there's an alternative. And you know football, so why don't you pass it on to other people and start coaching?
Yep.
And that's how we probably all got started. I mean, I love the game of football, and I had a chance to go and play it in college. I didn't take that chance, which I got some other scholarships, and I thought, you know, I'm going to go to K-State and be a student. Those athletic, I wasn't a great athlete, but I had a lot of fun and I loved it. And I learned football while I was doing it. But anyway, so I decided, you know, that's why I'm going to coach.
Yeah.
Because I miss the game. You miss the camaraderie. There's nothing, people don't understand what happens when you get in that huddle. Mm-hmm. You can look at huddles today, and like I said, there's different colors of people, different race, different religions. You know, we all have different ideas. But when you put on that same colored jersey and you get in that 11-man huddle, and you listen to that quarterback, and he tells you, here's what we're going to go do, man. And they break that huddle and go. There's nothing like that.
Amen. Amen.
People in the stands do not understand. It's
No.
not just about teaching them plays, and there's so much that goes into it. And well, you've heard it's the greatest team sport there is. I don't care. I'm prejudiced. I know that.
Me too.
I mean, it's a tremendous thing. The greatest feeling I've ever had is my first job at Wichita East at that time, we didn't have freshmen in the building, so I was the sophomore coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, that's kind of belittling of, I should be starting on the varsity. No, I started where I needed to start because it made me learn things as I went. Here's what you can get by with. Here's what you can't. And you learn as you go. And it's just a matter of teaching kids, being a part of something, learning how to interact with each other. It's a great sport.
It is.
My boys played it. My daughter's been around it. My wife and my daughter are probably two of the more knowledgeable football people I know. And it's just because they lived with it. You and I both know that if you're a good football coach, you've got a good wife standing by.
Oh yeah. 100%. Well,
family.
Well, Coach, I've taken enough of your morning up, but I poke fun at people like you and me that have dedicated all these years to coaching in public service. I always make fun of us for being the lowest paid public servants there is, but what we do matters. What we do makes a difference, and hopefully S2A is making a difference for coaches and keeping more coaches in the game, and it's keeping more coaches wanting to do football, and it's helping them be successful so they continue to pour into young people's lives. So, I can't thank you enough, Coach. I think you being a part of S2A adds such a rich element to our culture inside the fraternity, and it's been a blessing for me to have you here. And I just, I've told you I love calling and just shooting the bull with you. I enjoy just talking to you. So
you found out already. If you get me going, you're going to be here for a while.
That's okay. Well, like I told you, I said I was only going to take 10 minutes of your time. I think we're 40 on the clock. So, but that's perfect. That's perfect. Right?
You can edit.
Oh no, I love it. I love talking to you. So, Coach, we really appreciate you being in S2A, and we appreciate this time you spent with us and kind of testimonial to just help other coaches understand what S2A is. So I really appreciate your time, Coach Taylor. Thanks again. And we'll talk some more soon.
Well, I hope one of these days I can slip up to Emmett, Idaho and watch you play sometime.
You better get here, brother. I'll send you a schedule.
I will try.
Thanks again.
Thank you.